Welcome to StaarCast, a show about tarot, divination, and all things mystical. StaarCast is a celebration of StaarCon, the Southeastern Tarot Artist and Readers Conference. I'm Amy Mauser, and here's your host, Christiana Gaudet.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of StaarCast, the podcast that celebrates StaarCon. StaarCon 2022 is now just a couple of weeks away, and we are very, very excited, very glad that it is a hybrid conference, so people will be able to participate from wherever in the world they are. If you are in Florida or want to come to Florida, you are more than welcome to join us in person. If you would like to join us online, there's infinite room for you to do so. Tickets are available now, and ticket prices range from $50 to $425. So I am sure there's a ticket for you. Get your tickets and more information at StaarCon.com, StaarCon.com. With me today, I am very excited to introduce to you one of our most amazing presenters, Katrina Wynne. Katrina, thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Christiana. I love doing things with you. I mean, we've been doing little things here and there for years, and I just so much enjoy you and the excitement you bring to the world about tarot, how accessible you are, how accessible you make it to others. And then now making this completely accessible conference is just totally amazing.
Well, thank you for saying that. And thank you for seeing that, because accessibility has always been my thing. Mm-hmm. So I'm glad that you see that. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I see your dedication to that, and I really appreciate it. You know, in fact, actually, your book, Fortune Stellar, is required reading for my students. That's how important you are to me. So yay.
Oh, I so appreciate that. Thank you so much. And I'm so honored that you will be presenting at StaarCon. And you have this... the presentation you're doing is like you're filling such a needed spot. And when you suggested to me, I was like, oh man, that is so perfect. We're not going to spend a lot of time here talking about it because I want people to come to the conference and hear about it. Right. But just tell everyone what you will be presenting.
All right. Well, where this came from is a couple of roots. One is that every year on my web blog post, mysacredjourney.org, I post my annual, hey, this is the card for next year. These are some of the lessons that we're going through together or individually. And it kind of gives us a heads up, not like a prediction, but more like a forecast that we can align with and we can learn with and grow with. And so, of course, I've been looking forward to the lovers, of course, 2022. And I have that up right now. And of course, it's sending people back to the StaarCon. And I also did another series that also looks at the Major Arcana cards from their, I would say, their psychological challenges. I call it Tarot Psychology and the DSM, which represents the Diagnostic Manual. And so, of course, that's my background and where I do also come from, among other things, metaphysical as well as psychological. So that's some of the things I'm bringing into this. I'm looking at the lovers from so many different levels and how and this is the second part of what I've noticed in my counseling practice and my tarot practice, people were very interested in their soul purpose. What am I here for? What does life mean to me, right? Or what do I mean to life? I mean, it's so core to our existential identity. So I do see the macrocosm and the microcosm. The microcosm being, this is my journey based on my birth date and where I'm at right now and the unfolding of that journey. But then there's also the group journey that we're on. And that's also just as exciting to me. So as I'm looking at each year, I'm looking at how are we growing together as a group? You know, at least those of us who align with the Gregorian calendar. Can't speak for everybody.
Well, and I think it's fair that, the Gregorian calendar really does influence. I mean, even people who follow a different calendar, it does influence them as well. It really does. And, when we planned that StaarCon would be an annual event in January each year, it did not really occur to me that, that leaves us this really beautiful place to discuss the card of the year. And so thank you for seeing that obvious thing that I did not see.
You know what? And I'm going to say it publicly now and offer, I will do it every year for you because I love doing it. We got it. We got it because it's, I mean, to me, it's like kicking off the year, having a focus, seeing what your opportunities are, seeing what the some of the potholes might be along the road, and to being better prepared then, individually, collectively, as a family, as a group, a business, as a world. Yeah.
Perfect. I love it. And I'm so excited for your presentation. Yes. Now, you said something there. This was not where I had planned the line of questioning to go, but since you mentioned it, you said something about soul purpose. Yes. And I agree. Many times that's what people are sort of looking for when they come to tarot, when they come to metaphysics, is that sense of soul purpose. And I think most of us, at least those of us who are lucky enough to be able to say this, when you find something that really resonates with you, whether it's a career path, whether it's a spiritual path, whether it's a place that you're living or a thing that you're doing in life, and it just feels so innately right. And you say, I am living my purpose.
Yes. And how do you know that? Ask yourself, Christiana, how do you personally know it when you know you're on your path? What does it feel like? What is your energy like?
Well, that's such an interesting question. And I'm still going to ask you your question, but okay. Well played. For me, it feels so right and so natural, even if it's something I had to learn, even if it's something I had to work toward. It wasn't necessarily easy, but it feels so right. I want it so bad I can taste it. And when I'm doing it, I feel very much like myself.
There you go.
Now, but here's the question. Do you think every person has that?
I do. And I believe, because I tend to believe very cosmically and universally and divinely. And I do believe each being on this earth is here. And I do mean the stones people and the tree people and the animals. We're all here for a very divine purpose, reason, even if it's just to breathe. So don't get too confused with goal-oriented, big, conquer the world ideas, and just the importance of breathing each day and living and being in one's heart. That could be the most profound experience in life. And maybe that's what this being came into this world to be, to learn, to share with others. So yes, indeed, I absolutely believe that we all have a purpose. And that's why my most popular reading with people is that path working with our soul and our purpose, our forecast for the year as well, and how it aligns with that purpose, and how each of us are on a spiral staircase, and how each year is a stepping stone in our development and our evolution, and not only individually, but also, again, collectively. Fascinating.
So I love that. And, I rail against, this new breed of poorly trained life coaches. I'm making little finger quotes there. Let me help you live your divine purpose. I really want to draw a distinction between that and what you're doing.
Got it.
Because what you're doing is recognizing that purpose may not be to make $1 million. That purpose may not be to become famous in some way. That purpose may be, to bear witness to something, to brew a great cup of tea. I mean, it could be anything.
Yes.
And if you can be in that place of joy and feel that connection with it, then you're there.
That is so true. In fact, just yesterday, I was listening to someone that I enjoyed learning from, who just reminded us all that the way you practice your spirituality is what you enjoy what you enjoy. Like my partner loves to play guitar. Some people love to sing. I used to love riding my bicycle everywhere. I love connecting with people, through Zoom and on the internet. And so when you do what you love and it feels opening of your center or your heart, that is your spirituality. That is living. That is your purpose. And so let's notice for a moment what it feels like not to be in one's purpose. When one feels maybe collapsed, or their energy is confined in some way, or you feel blocked by life. That's when we're saying, wait a minute, I'm not moving or flowing with my purpose right now. So those are just really key things to notice about ourselves. When are we in our personal flow? And of course, I am a bit of a Taoist, so flow is very important to me. And when are we being blocked, or where are we pushing too hard?
So that brings up an interesting thing too. And again, we're going in a completely different direction than I had thought we might, but we'll come back around to the questions I had planned to ask you. But you're bringing up some really interesting stuff that I ponder a lot. And apparently you are a person that if you're pondering stuff, maybe talk to Katrina because she knows about these things. So when we talk about flow and that sense of being blocked, and I totally get that, but I also know that sometimes we can be doing something that we're pretty sure is our purpose, where there is flow, but also blocks at the same time. And I see people who will say, okay, well, that door closed, so I guess I wasn't supposed to be doing that. And I'm thinking, oh, no. That's a door that you need to either push open or find another way around. Do not be dissuaded. So my question to you is, how do you tell the difference between those roadblocks that come up that are just meant to make us stronger in our purpose, and the ones that really say, yeah, no, you shall not go further here, do something different? Right.
Well, for one thing, as you might imagine, everybody, that's a very deep question, and everyone's maybe going to have a different response to that. There's no one answer. But part of it goes back to, am I giving up because it's a pattern for me? In other words, do I always get to the same door and stop? Is it time for me to go further? Okay, that's one way of looking at it. Another is sometimes the door shows up because it is part of the journey. In other words, is the going through that door and taking the risk and facing fear and facing death, is that your purpose in that moment? So there's a lot of different ways of looking at those blocks. Blocks aren't necessarily saying you're in a little maze and this particular hallway won't go any further, and so you have to be like a little rat and follow the proper way. No, because it's your own personal journey, and you make it. So you decide what it is. Is that a block that's insurmountable? Is it a block that I need to put aside? Is it a block I need to get outside help to help me get through? Is it a block that I'm going to use some inner resources on? So there's lots of different ways. And so blocks, and this is why I love talking about the tarot, and I talk about what I call the psychological challenges in the tarot, because if we recognize the challenge, we then can understand what the gift is behind it. And so I would say, if you're going to push through because maybe your parents told you had to do that, or you would feel like your life isn't important enough unless you did that because you have a preconception of what the importance of life is, those are the things to watch out for if you're pushing too hard. If you're pushing too hard, not because you want to do it, because some outside force is telling you to do it. Warning.
Brilliant. And so you had mentioned that you have a background in psychology, and you combine that with your metaphysical background. And one, very organically in our conversation, one can really see what that looks like for you and how incredibly valuable that is. Now, you do something that you call tarot counseling.
Right. In fact, I actually call it Transformative Tarot Consulting as my brand.
I love that.
But also because here's some of the backstory on this.
Okay.
So why did I even start calling my work tarot counseling? So here I was, a solitary practitioner studying tarot as a spiritual text and picture book of wisdom. And to me, it wasn't about doing readings for other people. If I wanted to do a reading for myself, I'd actually go to the I Ching and do ceremony. But with the tarot, I was studying as a book of wisdom because it's so rich in information and history and influence. So then I moved here to the coast of Oregon, where I live now, out in the woods. And as people started getting to know me and they found out that I know about tarot, they started asking me to teach, and they started asking me to do readings. And I thought, okay, creator, I guess that's what you want me to do. So, I'm following the guidance that I receive. I didn't start off with a plan. I'm going to do A, B, and C. It just came to me, and I was guided, and I listened to the guidance. So then when I started being invited to do psychic fairs, I noticed that most people were doing what would be called like a stereotypical reading, where there's prediction involved, fortune telling, that kind of thing. And, I'd finished graduate school. I had a master's in counseling psychology. And even while I was in graduate school, I was experimenting with different ways to bring my studies in the tarot together in terms of a spread. So I thought, I got to let people know this is not what I'm doing. I wouldn't want them to be disappointed if they came to me. And so I thought, I'm going to put this name, tarot counseling, next to what I'm doing, so they'll understand this isn't tarot reading necessarily. I'm not reading to you. This is counseling, which means we're having a relationship, and there's a flow and there's a process. And that was the distinction I started making. And then when I created my website, I was probably the first one to have tarot counseling, and I still have it, tarotcounseling.org. Way back in like 1995. And then as more internet stuff opened up, I thought I need to distinguish it. And so I called it Transformative Tarot Counseling. So people understand that for me, the potential, I'm not going to say the goal necessarily, but the potential is to have a transformative experience from the inside out.
I love that. So did you work as a clinical therapist at one time?
Well, that's interesting that you add the tag clinical. So let me speak specifically to that. Oh boy, that's a big topic, but I'm going to try to really squeeze it down to the cliff notes. Let's just say whether you're wanting to be a medical doctor or some other profession that has licensure involved, let's just say there's very, very specific and very, very narrow channels for reaching those licensures. Right. And it has to do with a science that has been stamped of approval by the government or by the AMA, American Medical Association, or something like that, which means you're only practicing what they have approved.
Right.
Now, we also know there's so many modalities out there. That would be like everybody has to use one tarot deck and they have to use one interpretation. Right. Now, in the tarot world, we don't go with that, right?
Right.
In the psychology world, I don't go with that either. And so what I did is while I was going, first off, I chose a graduate school that was alternative to begin with. So I went to Antioch University in Seattle, Washington.
Oh, nice. Okay. Very good.
Yeah. And so already program kind of brought in both sides. It brought in the world of psychology, what they expect me to know, like developmental psychology and, I studied addictions and things like that. Things that are very practical, personality types, etc. But then on the other side, I was able to bring in what I was doing already, which I was studying process work with Drs. Arnold and Amy Mindell, which is a different modality in itself that's influenced by Jungian psychology. So in essence, I was studying Jungian psychology, but not officially through the Jung Institute, but through the process work, which kind of took it to the next stage, much, much broader way of applying those concepts. And then, of course, that influence went into my way of working with the tarot cards as well as teaching. So I personally did have to learn some clinical behavioral type psychology, but and then also with my, with a lot of programs, you have to have life experience. So you go and you work in a clinic, and the clinics are very geared towards clinical psychology and behavioral psychology, cognitive behavioral. But for me, I was studying psychotherapy, basically. So I went into a broader place. And so later on, when I was on the coast, the county had asked me, since there were I was the only consistent counselor in the South County, and they asked me if I would see some of their clients. And so I would be a subcontractor. So yes, I had those years of experience as a clinical counselor, taking clinical notes and doing all the things the insurance companies expect, because they want to see results and they want to put everybody through the same program, and they want a 1 to 10 kind of success rate. So I did that in addition to seeing my private clients. But for my private clients and my tarot clients, no, I don't take a cookie cutter approach at all. To me, each client, each reading, each card, even the way I look at it, absolutely unique. I see it with fresh new eyes. And that's makes all the difference in the world for me anyway. And then there's people who like to learn that. So those are the people who tend to be attracted to studying with me.
Oh, that's beautiful. So can you tell us your tarot origin story?
Okay. I'm 65. I was born in 1956 in Texas. And growing up in Texas, it's ironic, or maybe, I don't know what it is, but let's just say I found out later there actually was a metaphysical bookstore in Houston, Texas. John Gray, Men from Mars, Women from Venus. He talks about the fact that his mom had a store. I didn't know about it. I wish I did. So here I was in Texas, a little teenager, very interested in all things metaphysical. I was interested in astrology and palmistry and psychometry and tarot and the I Ching. So I was studying a little bit of everything, right? In fact, even my next door neighbor friend handed me my first tarot deck, which was a Marseille deck. I didn't know what to do with it, but I knew I wanted to do something with it. And so then after that, little by little, I started finding books. Then I moved to California. I could find a lot more books. So that's why I'm really a tarot book collector. Like if I could turn my screen around, you'd see my immense library here. Yes, I also collect decks, but mostly the books. And so I was self-taught through the books and on my own experiences. And that's why I was a solitary practitioner for 20 years. And what I was fascinated with, and this is what I've been working on for several years in my own book called The Sacred Journey of Your Soul, is the Major Arcana and the story through the Major Arcana as told through different eyes and different lenses. And that has been a huge motivator for me. And it ties in with the tarot numerology. It ties in with the soul purpose. And I have found it to be absolutely a profound teacher about life and the potential that each of us have in our soul's journey. And of course, that goes back to Jungian psychology, Joseph Campbell, and also on the other side, go back to magic and Israel Regardie, the Golden Dawn. So once I really focused on tarot, it was so beautiful the way it opened back up and got me back in touch with things like astrology. But I was doing the I Ching all along, though. That's also been my other path, which not so many people know about. I don't write that much about it.
The I Ching was my second divination tool long before tarot came into my life.
Beautiful. Then you understand this idea of the flow and Taoism and following and not leading, which is the way I approach my tarot readings. I follow, I don't lead.
Absolutely. So right now, this minute, what's your go-to deck?
Okay. Well, there's a couple. The main one that I always go to since it came out in the mid 80s, and that was a process in itself, kind of, I feel, that story of Sleeping Beauty and the 3 beds, right? It's like you try on this bed, it was too hard. It's not Sleeping Beauty, Goldilocks. So she tried on this, oh, that's too hard. Oh, that's too soft. Well, that was my experience with tarot decks in the beginning. Sure. Ooh, that one's too white, and that one's too medieval, and that one's too many humans. And so, of course, then when the Voyager Tarot came around.
Gotcha. Yeah.
I went, I found my home. I felt like I just found my home, and it's been my home ever since. And it continues to grow with me. In fact, just 2 days ago, I was on James Wallace's annual Zoom call and talking about the year 2022 as well. So I just absorb all this. I love it. But through the holidays, through the dark days, I was particularly drawn to my Starlight Illuminated Tarot from Carol Hertzer.
Oh, she's so wonderful.
Yeah, I have quite a few of her decks. I just absolutely love them. Sure. So what I'll do is and then truth is, I mostly do Oracle decks. So I don't have it right here with me, but I have my Oracle deck because I pulled out my card for the new year. And I like the Oracle decks because they have very, very specific themes. And I have very specific things I'm interested in these days. So to me, I go to the deck because it's going to reflect that back to me, and that's what I recommend for anybody. Well, in fact, my beginning students would say, yeah, sure. Yeah, it's nice to receive a deck, which I did for my first deck, but still they're like friends. If you want to make friends with that deck, bring it in, and each friend has a different purpose or a different thing that they bring out of you. So go to those different decks and draw that wisdom or share that wisdom. So mine tend to be very cosmic Oracle decks. Because I'm, as I say on one of my business cards, it says I'm a metaphysical cosmologist.
Oh, I love that. I love that. So if people want to work with you, what are your offerings right now?
All right. Most people love studying with me, and I have a course. I have it right here. Professional Tarot Consulting Certificate course.
Nice.
And I also have a beginning course, which is just, here it is. These are all on global spiritual studies. They're things that were live but recorded, and now you can go back and buy the recordings.
Right.
And so I have my beginning tarot, path working with tarot numerology, which is a great study on tarot numerology, psychological challenges and the major trumps, which, by the way, I am re-recording, updating in February 1st and 8th in the US, 2nd and 9th in Australia. Because, of course, I've learned so much more since I recorded it. I have to update these things.
I know the feeling. Yep.
Yeah. Sacred Journey of your soul through the Major Arcana, sexual symbolism and meaning in tarot, significance of significators. This one's really cool. It took me a while to kind of influence Linda Marson at Global Spiritual Studies to allow me to do this one, but spiritual and biblical roots of tarot.
Interesting.
It's very, very well researched. And there's a lot I had to leave out, I have to say. But it's very well researched, a lot of information, a lot of resources, and then tarot magic and transformation.
Beautiful.
And then, of course, but this one here is my most popular. This is what's now called the Level 1 certificate course. And I take people with some experience into intuitive skill building and spreads, developing your practice, counseling skills and ethics, business and promotion. What book goes with that week? Advanced tarot skills such as the power of symbolism and dream work and readings. That is like the heart of my work right there, is how to work with the symbols in the cards as well as outside of the cards, and bringing my process work understanding how to bring those symbols to life. It's really deep work. And then the advanced tarot metaphysics is astrology, alchemy, and Kabbalah, and not only what the symbolisms are and what they mean and how to use them, but how they show up in the cards and how they show up in readings. So it's very, very practical. And then now I have my level 2, which started just in January of that last year. And that's for people who want to take what they've learned here to the next level, much more counseling skills. And I'm not trying to train people to be counselors. That's part of the ethics class on this level. It's like
right.
Making that differentiation, having a referral list, but it still helps to know and understand some of those counseling skills, like listening skills, right? Being compassionate, having an open mind, really, really key things like that. And then when we get into the level 2, it's like, all right, now how do we pick out and understand and work with contrast and dynamics that show up, and the yin and the yang, as you might imagine from a Taoist point of view, and how to use that as this dynamic tension in the reading to where you come up with that third transformative element. So that's very much what the level 2 is focused on, is the magic in a reading and how to take it in a very deep transformative direction.
That is so interesting. So primarily at this point, you're a teacher.
I would say primarily I am. And then what was so cool I don't know about you, I'm guessing this is true for you too, dear, but we get these downloads, right? Sure. And for me, I just say, Creator Divine said, all right, Katrina, this is what I want you to do now. I'm like, okay. So last year I was told to start a meetup group. I even reached out to you because I noticed that the name I came up was really similar to your name. And I went, wait a minute. Where'd that come from? I wanted to make sure it was okay with you, and thank you for your blessing. Sure. So it's Katrina's Tarot and Oracle Global Meetup Circle. Right. We just call it GMC for short. Right. And what's so cool about that is that where we get to do live sessions, not the recorded sessions, but live. They're not recorded. So I have guest mentors each month. And I have professional supervision for people who want to keep learning. And there's a special topic each time and an opportunity to practice a reading and practice a skill. There's also a quarterly meet and greet where we just come and network. We have people from all over the world. And usually there's a special quarterly look ahead reading spread at some point at the end. And then what's so great is after doing it for a year, people have been making recommendations. Oh, I'd like to see this person teach, or as a guest mentor that I have each month, or I'd like to, actually they made a couple of suggestions for me to teach. So I'm actually kind of fitting more things in there. Like a couple of days ago, I was called to do my Awakening Universal Purpose ritual, which is a 3-hour deep dive into the 10 dimensions. Because remember, I'm very cosmic, the 10 dimensions of energy that influence everything. And it was profound. And I'm still reeling from it. It was so wonderful. So I decided to offer it again come December 30th here in our side of the world. And of course, it'll be the 31st for those friends who are on a little ahead of us.
Got it.
Yeah.
And, I remember when COVID first started, you were one of the people you were just right up there. Okay, we're doing this. We're doing it on Zoom. Everyone can gather. And you were one of the people who really just put it out there that it's okay. We're still a community. We can still gather. And it was so appreciated.
Oh,
and
I didn't come for me. I can't take credit. I tell you, creator, I wake up in the morning. Sometimes I wake up with a song and the song has a message. And sometimes I have a visual and sometimes I just have guidance that says, go do this. And I'm like, okay. I was told to do that. And I was so glad you participated in it. That was so amazing.
Yes.
Yeah. We had 2 people every Saturday, Sunday down under for 10 weeks. That was amazing. Each one of them volunteered their time. And it was a way for us to stay connected. It was open to everybody. That's why I didn't record it, because once you start recording things, there's a lot more production time involved. It costs money.
Right.
So I just said, hey, I'm not recording it. This is going to be stress-free. I already had my Zoom room anyway. So let's put it to use and get people together and support each other through this. And there's some amazing, just really deep, heartfelt presentations, and including yours, by the way, that really kept people going through a very for some people, they might use the word dark. For some people, they would say unknown place in their lives.
Strange. Mm-hmm. And it still is strange times, most certainly, but different. And, one of the things I learned, and you learned, and we all learned together, is that as much as being together in the same room is something we as humans are sort of programmed for. The technology now is good.
For those of us who have technology, and I always realize no matter what wonderful things going on for some of us, some people might feel left out.
Of course.
And that's what's so amazing about your event, because you're doing this. You've put so much thought into how can I make this more alive for the people who are attending to connect with the people who are online, and the people who are online connect with the people who are there in purpose. In person. And I have to say, last year I paid to attend, even though I was going to come and present, but I thought, I don't think I'm going to travel right now. But I was so happy to be able to attend and then go back and listen to the classes I couldn't go to live.
Yes.
Genius.
Yes. The 30-day Afterglow is really an amazing thing. And whether people are in person or online, we have these 30 days in Excel events where we can watch recordings of the classes, whatever classes are in your ticket. You can watch recordings of those classes, and we're going to do some live events in the lounges. And it's a 3-day conference, but it's also this 30-day experience for us.
And for someone like me, I go back and I'll watch something like Mary Greer talking about the hanged one over and over.
That was a great
presentation. Those visuals alone were amazing.
Oh my gosh, yes. And this year, Excel Events has an app.
Okay.
Last year, you really needed to be on your laptop or on your desktop to have the experience. This year, we'll see how it works, but we have an app on our phone, and that's going to help for those who are in person to sort of play with the comments coming in from the people who are online.
Nice.
We're really going to be connected one with another.
Right.
And there's still like a lot of sliding around about who's going to be able to be in person, who needs to be online. And it's okay. That's the whole point of being hybrid.
Yes.
And that to me was a gift of the pandemic, because never would I have taken on that challenge.
I hope you keep it that way too.
It's the plan. The plan.
I love that.
Assuming that all goes well and we are able to continue going forward, the plan is it will always be a hybrid conference, because there's lots of reasons people can't travel.
Right.
And there's lots of reasons that people want to travel. Mm-hmm. And so why not make it available to everyone? So
I wanted to drive there, and I asked my partner, I go, wouldn't you like to have a month-long adventure? We'll drive from Oregon down to California, across Arizona, down to Texas, and then over to Florida, and then up to North Carolina, and then maybe New Mexico. Yeah, I can do that because I'm a chariot in the tarot.
Got it.
Not my partner.
Right. But, you never know for 2023, 2024. Right. You never know what might happen. We would love to see you in person when the time is right.
Yeah.
But, again, I'm so glad that we have the technology and, over that time of lockdown, and I stayed locked down for quite some time. I did, as you did, we did Zoom ritual. We did all kinds of Zoom stuff. And I was amazed by how the energy is, how the energy feels. Mm-hmm. And then when we did StaarCon online only last year, it felt like we had gone somewhere. It really did. And so
I remember sitting at lunch with you.
Yes, we had lunch together. Yes.
But through cyberspace.
Yes. And that is how it will be. So whether you're joining us in person or online, it's going to be a great experience. And I'm so glad that you're going to be with us. Now, I know you've shared a couple of websites, but just go ahead once again for people who want to reach out to you. Where should people go to get the most information about you and how they can work with you?
I would just go to my website, and I have to admit I am updating it. It looks a teeny bit old, but I've already got the new one in the works. So that's just tarotcounseling.org.
Tarotcounseling.org. And Katrina Wynne, I'm sorry, I interrupted you. What were you going to say?
Oh, so basically right down here, tarotcounseling.org. I don't know if that's focusing. And then right below there, mysacredjourney.org. Interesting monthly posts with links to people such as you. And then for the classes, that's on globalspiritualstudies.com. And then you can go to my page, which is just Katrina Wynne. And you'll see I have something like 22 recorded online classes. A couple of them are free, so you can get an idea of what it feels like. Perfect. And then every now and then I re-record one. Like last year, I re-recorded my business one because you had updated your book. And plus, I wanted to update more online ways for people to connect and do readings. And so that one's free. You can watch that one on the site. And then I'm going to be updating the psychological challenges and bringing in a lot more stuff because I continue to study. And there's things that I find that readers, it would be helpful for them to know and to study for themselves, like attachment styles. I don't know how many people are familiar with attachment styles. Gina Thies talked about it a little bit in her book, Tarot Coupling. And by the way, I should mention Gina Thies and I have done a podcast in the past. We're kind of in transition. I won't say too much about it, but we've got new ideas for it that are in the works. But we don't know where that's going to go, but we still have all the old podcasts available. And you can do a search for a particular topic. And it's called oraclesoup.org, O-R-G. Yeah.
All right, Katrina Wynne, I want to thank you so much for being my guest on StaarCast, for being a presenter at StaarCon 2022. We are looking forward to your presentation on the Year of the Lovers.
Oh my gosh, so much. And I only have 60 minutes, right?
60 minutes, that's correct.
It's going to be so rich with visuals too. It's so funny because I'd already planned on doing that. I showed you my notes I had written immediately. And then I saw Mary, so I went, oh, wow, yeah. Mary's got it, but she did it on the hanged one. She's taking it in a slightly different direction than I am. She did it from a historical point of view, which, of course, she's amazing at.
She is such a great historian, isn't she?
Yeah, she is.
Well, very good. We will see you in a couple of weeks at StaarCon 2022.
And I look forward to seeing all of you as well.
Thanks for joining us for StaarCast. For more information about our annual conference, visit us online at StaarCon.com. That's StaarCon.com. We are looking forward to seeing you in January.